So we're going to be talking about a kunai today. So this is what a traditional Japanese kunai looks like. Notice it doesn't have a giant ring on it. Those are actually ring daggers, and where the confusion comes from is through manga and Naruto mainly. These were a tool that were carried by the ninja. They were a repurposed gardening tool or a mason tool. What they would use them for a variety of things, whether it was going through and trying to drive this in between different types of mortar, so they could have a place to stand on, where they're going through and lifting up boards to kind of stash things or set up booby traps. The other thing that they would use them for is for fighting. So obviously you can throw them. These were heavy and blunt instruments. They were sometimes serrated on the edges, but often just kind of finger quilts dull, had a point on them, but it was a close range impact tool. So we have the pommel that we can use. Obviously we would have this loop, we'd have a lanyard that goes through this hole and on our wrist that would allow for some certain options, like some loose strikes. So that pommel, as we're in there and we have it, right, this might be hidden, and we'd come through and maybe smash or use that for the disarm. The other thing that we might look at doing is using this edge to come through and break the bones, right? So we might look at coming through here and then raking the tip across the eye. Now, we weren't usually seeing a lot of stabbing with this, but that rake across the eye, or like an abanico or a sunkit or something like that, like we talk about in Filipino martial arts. The other thing that we would do is we would see this, the large flat used as a way to disable people and cause concussions without necessarily trying to kill them. Maybe I don't want to create a whole bunch of blood. Maybe I want to try to subdue them and take them later. So we look at using like a frying pan type of motion, in which we'd have this really nice and loose and we'd hit, right? So we would look to use that edge to break. We'd use those loose types of strikes, right? We might go through and rake the eyes. We weren't typically stabbing. We weren't looking to slice. This is very much an impact thing. And so if we're looking, this comes in, I'm in tight, it might be kind of coming in and hacking that arm, right? To try to break the bone or to break this wrist, right? This might come up, we might push off, and then I might want to subdue him. So I'll come to kind of behind the ear and slap. Try to hit that master or that occipital process in there, right? So that's a main thing that we look at. The other thing that we can use that edge for is to break the sword itself. So when we would see during the disarmament of the samurai, there was something called a jute, which was it was a rod that had a small hook on it. That'd be used to strike the midpoint of the sword on the flat. So I'd take the dull edge and I'd smash it in, and the goal is to actually break it. Despite what common belief is, the steel that was used in samurai swords is really poor quality. They were good swords in spite of the material and not because of it. So we're looking to break with that edge, whether it's the weapon itself, whether it's what's holding it, right? Possibly using that pommel, right? Shot might come in and we might slap that fist, or we might actually come back and hack into it. Remember, we're not slicing, we're breaking. So this could be here, right, coming through, and we might hammer with that, right? Rechambering and slap across the temple, right? Or we might rake across the eye in an abanico. That's typically the types of things that were done with these. Obviously kicks and stuff like that, you could go through and catch it, then use it to break the shin bone, stuff like that. But they were a close range impact tool that you could also throw. Typical weight, they were pretty heavy. This one's a little over 300 grams, and that's pretty standard. Anyway, that's the kunai.